Welcome to the Explainer. So let's just dive right into this, because today we are unraveling something that is incredibly frustrating, yet way too common in today's labor market. You know the drill, right? You spend hours perfectly tailoring your resume, you write this incredibly thoughtful cover letter, you click your way through some clunky corporate portal, only to send your application into what feels like a literal black hole. You wait weeks, you hear absolutely nothing, but the crazy part? That job listing stays active online. Well, it turns out you aren't crazy, and it is definitely not your fault. Today, we're exposing the highly deceptive world of ghost jobs and sham vacancies.
Now, I really want you to think back for a second. Have you ever interviewed for a job that didn't actually exist? Have you ever felt that horrible shared frustration of putting absolutely everything you have into an application? Maybe you even made it through multiple rounds of interviews only to be completely met with silence? I mean, it's a crushing experience, right? Especially if you're currently unemployed and you're just hanging on to the hope that this one opportunity is finally your big break. Well, the data we're looking at shows this is happening on a massive systemic scale.
Section 1. The illusion of opportunity. Let's unpack the actual mechanics of what's happening behind the scenes here.
Okay, so there is a really critical distinction we need to make right off the bat. The term ghost job gets thrown around a lot as a sort of umbrella term. It can be a role that was canceled because of a sudden hiring freeze, or maybe just an evergreen posting they leave up to collect resumes for a rainy day. But a sham vacancy announcement, that is deliberate deception. This is a job posting created for one reason only: to give the public appearance of open, fair competition when, behind closed doors, a candidate has already been handpicked. We're talking about situations where the company president's relative, their wife, a cousin, or an internal best friend has already been promised the job. The entire game is completely rigged from the start.
And this deception, it's happening everywhere. If we look at data from the hiring platform Greenhouse, massive chunks of job openings in certain industries are just entirely fake. Look at this. We're seeing a 38% ghost job rate in construction, 34% in the arts sector, and 29% in the legal industry. To put that into perspective, in some of these sectors, nearly 4 out of every 10 job postings you see online are not real opportunities. No way.
But guys, it actually gets worse. A recent survey from Resume Builder revealed something truly shocking. These companies aren't just forgetting to take old postings down or hoarding resumes in some database. Get this. Of the companies that admitted to posting fake listings, 85% of them admitted to actually interviewing applicants for those non-existent roles. They are actively stringing people along and wasting their time in fake interviews for jobs they literally never had a chance of getting.
Section 2. The true cost of interviewing. We really need to talk about the devastating human toll this practice takes on hopeful job seekers.
So, the absolutely crucial point I want you to take away is this number right here, $1,500. Research shows this is the median financial loss for an applicant going through one of these deceptive recruitment processes. I want you to really picture this for a second. Imagine an unemployed person who has been out of work for months. Things are incredibly tight. They see this perfect job posting. They get a call for an interview, and suddenly they have genuine, real hope. So what do? They spend their very last couple of dollars putting gas in their car, maybe they pay for a train ticket, they get their only suit dry cleaned, or heck, maybe they even go out and buy a brand new suit because they want to make the best impression possible. They pour their heart, their precious energy, and their dwindling savings into this, all for a charade. They never had a chance. The institution is just using them to make it believe they are following HR rules, while the boss's cousin is literally already sitting in the wings waiting to sign the offer letter. It's incredibly hurtful.
In fact, legal and socioeconomic scholars we looked at for this explainer describe this perfectly. They call it, quote, a direct, predatory extraction of capital from the most vulnerable segment of the workforce. And they hit the nail on the head. Because this orchestrated deception doesn't just ruin applicants financially, it psychologically breaks them. When you are repeatedly ghosted after giving a fake interview your absolute all, it leads to severe burnout, a deep sense of shame, and it just completely destroys your professional confidence.
Section 3. Behind the compliance theater. So why on earth would any company orchestrate this cruel charade in the first place?
Well, why post a fake job at all? More often than not, it boils down to internal HR compliance. See, mid to large companies usually have strict rules requiring open, competitive searches to prevent nepotism. But when a manager already has their favorite buddy picked out, they just view this rule as an annoying bottleneck. So they put up a compliance posting to create a legally defensible paper trail. They are essentially faking a meritocracy just to satisfy Equal Employment Opportunity Commission rules. But there's more. Sometimes they post fake jobs to get free market research on what talent is out there, or to falsely project to investors that the company's growing rapidly. Some even do it to pressure their own overworked staff into thinking they're totally replaceable, because hey, look at all these open requisitions we have online. The general public is literally being used as pawns.
Okay, so how do you protect yourself? I want to equip you with the exact red flags of a sham vacancy so you don't waste your time or money. First, watch out for hyper-tailored job descriptions. If an entry-level role has incredibly bizarre, super-specific requirements, it was probably reverse-engineered to match the pre-selected candidate's exact resume. Also, keep an eye out for crazy abbreviated posting windows, like a job that's mysteriously only open for 24 to 48 hours or posted right over a major holiday weekend. And if you do end up in an interview, beware of perfunctory, highly scripted panels where the interviewers seem, well, completely bored and can't even answer basic questions about the day-to-day projects.
Section 4. Is preselection actually illegal? This naturally brings us to the big question, how are companies legally getting away with this?
Well, the answer really depends on where you work. In the federal and public sector, preselection and sham vacancy announcements are strictly illegal. No exceptions. It violates merit system principles, and it's classified as a prohibited personnel practice. You simply cannot manipulate the hiring rules just to hand a job to your favorite person. But in the private sector, it is a massive Wild West legal gray area. Unless you can prove the fake job posting is being used to specifically discriminate against a protected class, like based on age, race, or gender, private companies are pretty much insulated from liability. So general nepotism, or running a fake interview loop just to hire the boss's best friend, is currently considered a standard, albeit highly unethical, business practice.
But here's where it gets interesting, because legal scholars are starting to push a totally different angle. They're arguing that fake job postings are fundamentally a consumer protection issue. Think about it. Section 5A of the FTC Act prohibits unfair or deceptive acts in commerce. By posting a fake job, a company is making a huge misrepresentation that tricks you, the applicant, into surrendering incredibly valuable personal data. Your resume, your phone number, your address, not to mention spending your own hard-earned money to prep for the interview. The FTC is actually starting to take this seriously and has even established a joint labor task force to look into deceptive job advertisements.
Section 5. New laws and advocacy efforts. The good news here is that people are finally fighting back against these hurtful practices.
Lawmakers are actively responding to this crisis and advocating to make this explicitly illegal. We've got several bills moving right now. In New York, Senate Bill 8877 would legally mandate that companies disclose if a job is actually vacant and force them to remove postings within 2 weeks of filling a role. If they don't, a $2,500 fine per listing. Over in California, Assembly Bill 1251 would classify failing to disclose true vacancy status as unfair competition, which could carry fines up to $10,000. And at the federal level, lawmakers are looking at two major proposals, the TJAA and the GHOST Act.
Let's actually dive a bit deeper into that proposed federal legislation, the Truth in Job Advertising and Accountability Act, or TJJA. Advocates are really hoping this will be a massive game changer. It would mandate a public active hiring certification just to prove a job is actually real and budgeted. It would completely ban postings made more than 90 days in advance. But crucially, and this is the big one, it would grant a private right of action to applicants. That means if a company tricks you into spending your last few dollars to interview for a sham job, you, as an individual, would finally be empowered to sue them for statutory damages over that deceptive data harvesting and your financial loss.
I also really want to highlight New Jersey's unique legislative angle with Assembly Bill 1161. To stop the severe psychological damage of candidate ghosting, this bill would legally force companies to formally communicate a final decision to candidates within 14 days of an interview. It's a huge step toward legally forcing corporations to finally respect the emotional energy, the time, and just the basic humanity of the people applying to work for them.
Ultimately, this all comes down to a basic matter of fairness. If a job posting is technically an advertisement designed to attract talent, collect your valuable personal data, and demand your time and money, shouldn't false advertising be illegal? It is absolutely time we critically rethink the rules of the labor market and demand transparency so that no unemployed hopeful is ever again used as a prop in a corporate theater production. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and stay curious out there.